Perfect. I hope that the Prosecco balanced out the sugar from the donuts, so you're just in this like nice even keel state for this. But really excited to be here today. As mentioned, we're going to talk about optimizing for the customer you don't know yet. And as we've already been introed, I just wanted to talk a little bit more. I'm Jenny Woys. I'm Vice President of Client Success at Monetate, and I'm here with the amazing Tamara. Tamara Lohan is the co-founder and chair of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is the award-winning boutique hotel booking platform that we all know and love. She is a tech innovator. She began as CTO there, and she led the brand's transformation from print to digital, becoming CEO and scaling it into a global business before it was acquired by Hyatt in 2023. She sits on the boards of Fortnum & Mason and Much Better Adventures, and she is a passionate advocate for women in technology and leadership. Tamara, welcome. We're so excited you're here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I know some of you could have gone home early, but instead come to listen to this, so thank you very much.
Yes, and I think, before we dive into questions, I was just really curious, how do you choose the hotels for this site? What does that process look like?
Wow. So we, from the very beginning, we have always visited each and every hotel in person. Sadly, I don't get to do that much these days. We have a team of people who go out there, our curators, and then we send people away anonymously, people you might know, bar owners, architects, magazine editors, who then write us an anonymous review, because obviously when we go to the hotel, we want to learn everything about it. We want to get to know the owner, the GM. We want to see the worst room and the best room. We want to see back of house. We want to really understand the bones of what makes that hotel special. So we can't obviously be anonymous in that role. And we obviously also need to kind of, sell them the coming onto the collection. The hotels cannot buy their way into the collection, even though they try. I have one little story I'll tell. So James and I were traveling through, when we did do curation, and we weren't very well known at the time, but we were starting to gain traction, and the hoteliers knew we were coming, and the hotel owner kind of bent over backwards to make us feel welcome. But the decor and the service just weren't quite right. And back in those days, when I was still doing curation, we used to walk in with a contract for the hotel, paper contract, which we would get the hotelier to sign there, and then if we had approved the hotel for going onto the platform. And so we ripped that contract up and put it in the bin and left the next day, saying, well, we'll write to you. So the next day, we realized we'd left some of our clothes in the cupboard. And so we rang the hotel, and the hotel owner answered the phone, and he says, I know, I've got your clothing. I've also got the contract that you ripped up in the bin.
Ripped up into pieces.
Perhaps you might like to come back and collect your clothing. So our clothing was held hostage over trying to get into the collection. So no, they can't buy. So our curators are trained to go and try and find these hidden gems, special places out there, and add them.
Amazing. Well, I'm sure you don't miss that piece of the curation process, but what an amazing story. If you haven't already, please join us on Slido. As mentioned earlier, we have an interactive portion here shortly, but also it allows you to curate your questions for the end when we have some time for Q&A, so please do that now. And we'll pop that up a little bit later, too, in case you miss it. We are in the Pulse Room. So a reminder of the theme, right? We're talking about audiences today and what we do and don't know, what we assume, right? We want to rethink the assumptions we make about our customers and their experiences. So we want to ease into this, right? I would love to just have you talk us through some of the tests that you've run on Mr. and Mrs. Smith to begin.
Yes, an interesting one we had very recently was we obviously a smaller player than the really big ones, Booking.com, Airbnb out there. And so we look to them, see, kind of try and learn what they're doing, and look to the really good e-commerce sites. And we thought, well, we still have a listings page that is a kind of long listing, and everybody these days in e-commerce seems to be going this grid layout. So naturally, that must, obviously, create better conversion. People must engage with more content, etc. So we tried it for ourselves. And what really surprised me, if I had been a betting woman, I would have put money on that increasing conversion. And yet for our customers, it really didn't. And it just taught me that sometimes you just can't assume. You just don't know. And how your customers, especially if you've got a very unique product or proposition, you don't know how your customers are going to react to the changes that you make, which is, of course, why it's so important to test. But it really struck me that, you don't know everything. And I'm old enough, and the business has been in business for long enough to know an era where we didn't test anything. I mean, we literally pressed the button. We didn't even have like slave databases or backups. Like, you pressed the button and hoped for the best, like not even knowing if the whole site was going to break down. And I can tell you that's happened to me as well. So in this era, like, not assuming anything, and understanding, when you come in, and then digging deeper to try and understand why it is that hasn't had the expected results.
Right, absolutely. And I think sometimes maybe with our customers too, change can be difficult. So if you go into something and it's not what you expected, you wonder, am I doing this right? Did I mess something up? So that might come into play as well. And I think you had another example.
Yeah, there's another example recently.
Yeah.
So we've, for a very long time, had a basket that, like normally commerce sites, you add a hotel room to the basket, and then you go through a checkout process. And we realized recently that actually 95% of people who are booking through us, we are Mr. and Mrs. Smith for couples, are couples booking one room in one hotel. So we could optimize and create a different path for people who we could identify as wanting to do that, and take out an entire booking step in the journey. So that's an extraordinary thing to be able to do when you've got, quite a complex, if you're thinking about putting people in rooms and the size of the room, and whether they got children, etc. So optimizing for that segment of our customers was super, super exciting.
Right.
And you're going to show some of the...
Yeah, I'll show the test too. So we have a visual example, and I'm going to explain it because it goes a little quickly in the Monetate screenshot. But basically, in the first flow, the control, the original one, the user will go through, they will choose their room, they will have a second screen that validates all of the details, and then they have a third screen that is the actual checkout payment screen. So here's the validation page. Step 3 is that payment and booking page, right? So that's the original control experience. And then the test that we were just talking about that was run in Monetate is the shorter purchase flow, right? So you first start by choosing your room on that original page, and then instead of going to that validation page that we just saw in the booking flow original, you will see that you are directed immediately to the payments page. So you have kind of all of your room details, your payment info, all here confirmed, but you can even see at the top we've gone from 3 steps to 2 steps. So we've dramatically shortened that user purchase flow, making it easier for users to complete their checkout. And here is where our Slido comes into place. We want to know what you think about this test, right? Mr. and Mrs. Smith ran it. Do you think that conversion went up drastically or dramatically? Do you think it went up a tiny bit? Do you think it remained the same? Or do you think it went down? Let's see what the audience has to say. Okay, conversion went up a little. Dramatically in second place.
I think that's settling down now. So the answer is it went down.
Conversion went down.
And it didn't just go down a little, it went down a lot. And I still don't know why. We're still figuring it out and trying to see kind of what behavior, and maybe adding on a bit more human questioning. So bringing in people to actually see why it is that this might not be something that they would like to check out quicker, more efficiently. So I guess the learning from all of this is, don't assume you know your customer. And sometimes, don't forget the human touch. So things like Monetate are brilliant because you can test, but you also need, to understand, what your instincts are as a human and understand your customer as a human being relating to your site.
Exactly, not just as a purchase.
Yeah.
So that's a fun one for not knowing what to expect sometimes. So going into everyone's favorite topic, buzzword, AI. As brands are bringing AI into the customer journey, how do you strike the right balance between automation but also human touch, as you've been talking about, which is so important, especially in this space, which is just, it's so personal and it's so high end. How do you find that balance?
So this question reminds me of one of our hotels. I think you've got a photo of it here.
Yes, we
so
do. It's
this is
beautiful.
the beautiful Forestis in the Dolomite Mountains in Italy. The owners of this hotel obviously have stunning situation here, and they had to the side. It's a ski lodge, but in a hotel as well, open all the way through the year for hiking and mountain biking, and it's just beautiful. And to the side of the swimming pool, they had a little restaurant. And they realized that every evening, as their guests came down, they had to decide which of their guests to disappoint, because only 2 of the tables in the restaurant had the view of those mountains. And as you can imagine, in the evening, as the sun comes down, the mountains turn pink. It's absolutely beautiful. And so they just had these horrible choices to make every evening. And I feel like if you gave that problem to AI, they would start to look for kind of optimizations. How could you put 3 tables? Could you do like 2 or 3 different sittings? So some people had to eat super early and some people had to eat super late. How could we optimize this? So what they did was something slightly different. They smashed the restaurant to pieces, and they told their constructors that every single person in the hotel had to have a view. And the result is a restaurant that I'm going to show you a picture of in a minute. Oh, there it is.
Oh,
Don't worry.
we're in the surprise.
So they built a theatre-style structure, tiered seating, and booths. So every seat has the view, and this panoramic, cinematic, floor-to-ceiling glass, so that they didn't have to disappoint a single customer. And so when I think of, again, that application of AI, automation, I think sometimes we get caught up in thinking about time saving, cost efficiency, and we ignore the human side and how we can actually optimize for the human beings rather than from the data.
Right. Not just with AI. I love that. Is everyone writing down the name of this hotel? Right. We all want to go there. It's so beautiful. Unbelievable. Amazing. Well, I think this leads really nicely into our next question, which is just in this ever-evolving world of users that are expecting custom-tailored experiences from the brands they're engaging with, how do you envision AI personalization assisting with the entire customer acquisition funnel?
Yeah, it's interesting. So 1% of our organic traffic is now coming from ChatGPT. And I wonder, does anybody in this audience know how much their referral traffic is from ChatGPT right now? Put your hands up if you do. Only a couple,
Yeah,
right?
it's new.
This is
Crazy.
changing. It's very new.
Yeah.
It's changing very fast. And it feels like the wild, wild west. And Jenny created me this brilliant image.
We used AI.
Jenny's husband is a designer, and he's got some great photos. But it's like the wild, wild west out there. Again, not sure, this is all about my age, but I was around when SEO was in its infancy, and we knew nothing. We had a customer who would land on the site, and we didn't know what they'd been searching for, what their intent was, what they were doing, what they wanted, anything. And they would land on a page. Yes, we would know what that page that was. And then kind of Google Analytics came along, and suddenly we were like, wow, we know what their search term is. So this feels like that again. right? We know these people are coming from ChatGPT, but we have no idea what their search was. How did they actually get to the point where ChatGPT recommended us? No idea. Like, no information, no tagging, no nothing. And so this is coming, right? So I do think about, in terms of acquisition through, and how much time are you all spending on ChatGPT right now? And I'm sure that travel is something that you've kind of tested. This is just going to get bigger and bigger. And so how do you optimize your site for that and be prepared? I think that, I don't know whether we're doing well, because there's not a lot of data out there at the moment. Whether that 1% of organic is that big? Is that good? Is that bad? No idea. But I do think that, quality of content and answering questions through your website, questions that people might have in real language, so applying the human side of what people are really trying to get answers for. If you can answer those on your site, then that will stand us in good stead. And I'm just hoping that, the wild, wild west grows up and we get a bit more data soon.
Just a little bit would be nice, right?
Yeah.
It does feel like early days of SEO and SEM, right? And kind of predating the search query mining capabilities. Since you don't have that, are there any metrics that you're using today or that you maybe foresee being important in the future as you start to analyze and make decisions based on the results and traffic you're getting from ChatGPT?
So, we really focus in on the cost to acquire a customer,
Right.
And make sure we optimize that. I think if you lose track of that, that's a slippery slope, because you end up with some quite expensive channels that you're not looking at or you're not watching. So that is the metric for us. And then layered on to that, the lifetime value, and how channels deliver kind of customers that will stay with you and stick with you for a long time.
Yes, LTV is crucial. I know a lot of our friends in the audience are looking at the same things. Okay, continuing with the theme, in a space that is becoming more dependent on automation and digital experience, where do you see the future of the travel industry as a whole moving?
So, it's a very interesting place, because obviously in travel, you've got the online kind of bookability, but then you have the experience that is delivered by humans, and it's all about human connection. But I see so often, I walk into a hotel and the person at reception either has a tablet like this. Can I take your name? Let's have a look at that. Or looking down at the computer and not engaging human to human. And so what we're saying is, AI will allow us to identify our customers, will allow us to surprise and delight them. You're not going to surprise and delight anybody by looking at a screen instead of looking at customers face to face.
Right.
Another one
Yeah, I
has
put the
these
image.
images.
And I like this one because, going on what you said, I've been to hotels where the check-in process is a screen tablet, sometimes without a human, and I feel like I've never felt more enraged sometimes. Like, I'm the person, rage tapping the tablet, what is going on here? Because this device can't anticipate needs and how to delight customers, right? So I feel like you're talking about a similar situation sometimes with humans too. We have to anticipate our customers' needs so that we can deliver them a delightful journey.
Yeah, and we're exploring right now, and I think there are some deep anxieties about around trust, around authenticity, around kind of what it means to be human in an AI-driven world, and how on earth are we going to maintain human connection if everything that we say and do, even in our relationships, like I haven't seen one today, but some people have got the new pendants. A friend of mine got a pendant, and his wife told him that she would actually divorce him if he recorded her.
What is the pendant? I actually
The
don't know what
pendant
this
is the AI assistant that kind of sits on a pendant, and it records every meeting and every interaction, and then gives you feedback. So you could be having a chat with your children, and the AI will say, you could have been a bit more understanding. That might be helpful or enraging.
Or maybe not, right?
If you're a parent. But if this is what is happening, and if we're putting data in between the human connection, where does that erode that magical connection that as humans that we have? And I do think, and then coming back to the kind of design of websites and apps and the technology that we're facing today, that the antithesis, or the thing we really need to do, is to design with purpose. We need to design systems that allow us to enrich and amplify what really makes us human. Because if not, we will trade efficiency for authenticity, and I think that balance is wrong. And so, yes, it's about training humans, like not to so much rely on the data, but implement it to make them better humans. In the retail space, I see this a lot, where people are trying to understand who's in their store, but it's very difficult because you can't look at an iPad all the time. And then to understand the right kind of human questions to ask. If somebody is walking around the store and you say to them, "Can I help you?" the answer will be no. But, "Oh, sir, I see that you're looking in this department. Can I tell you something about these chocolates?" Now that's a conversation, and it's not powered by AI. It's actually by looking at the human in front of you and seeing what they might be, what their intent might be. And I think we can apply that to websites as well. So I think we need to optimize, not for necessarily for efficiency all the time, but for thoughtfulness in our web designs.
Amazing, absolutely. And I'm curious too, I think you have some good stories about hotels and community and remembering, again, back to this theme of we can't automate everything, AI can't win. So any stories you could share there about hotels and community?
Yeah, there's an amazing, so I don't know if you've been aware, but in the press recently, there's been a lot of angst and anxiety in some of our core travel hotspots. So, for example, the Canary Islands, Mallorca, Barcelona, Amsterdam, Venice. The very people who rely on tourism for their livelihoods are saying no more. We cannot take any more because they're damaging the local environments and the local communities. So I really feel like there needs to be a movement towards, again, a much more human connection with the people around you. And these are the hotels and the travel companies that are going to win in the end. So the ones that really, so a B Corp companies, for example, really care about the people community are the pillars, one of the pillars that you have to go through to show that you care. And the hotel I want to talk about is a hotel called Oasi. It's just outside Tuscany. They have something like 1,600 hectares of forest, which they protect. They protect a pack of wolves there who keep all of nature in balance in this area. It's cabins, so you really feel like you're part of nature when you're there. But at the hotel and the tourism that comes in pays for, or helps pay for, this incredible camp called the Dynamo Camp. And there, every year, they have 100 critically ill or severely disabled children who come, and for 1 week, they can be children again and let go of their disability. They have a climbing wall there, and no matter how disabled you are, they will get you to the top of the climbing wall. Swimming pools, the horses, the equine stuff. It is just such a beautiful place. And it's just so integrated within the local community. Now, there's nobody in the surrounding area, surrounding village, that is going to say that is not a good part of our community, and they are upholding the community and creating jobs, but also putting back into that community of people. And I really do think this is has to be policy for any new company and companies trying to evolve into the experience space right now.
Absolutely, right? You can't automate nature, fortunately. So, what an amazing hotel, an amazing community to hear about.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just bring, we talk so much about digital, and so I guess what I want you to leave here is like not to forget the human, and I really do think it's the businesses that put the human at the center of their business rather than the periphery, that will create that magical tech connection that humans and technology can make, and they will be the winners of the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was lovely.
My pleasure.
Okay, we have made it all the way to Q&A. I will re-show us our Slido slide. So if you haven't yet joined, please do join, add your questions. Maybe you've been adding them all along. And then if I do this, oh, look at that. You're already
wow.
getting a lot of questions. Amazing. Let's see. You can probably see them there too, but this might be easier. Let's see.
Right. Can too much personalization be a bad thing? Does it overestimate how predictable they are? So it's really interesting, especially in travel, because just because you went to Spain last year does not mean that you will go to Spain next year. And just because you went to a pub in the Cotswolds last weekend does not mean to say that you aren't celebrating a birthday and want to go more glamorous and dress up and have 24-hour room service and a barman who can mix a perfect martini. That's not going to happen at a pub, right? So it's very difficult to personalize because as humans we are messy. And we have these kind of occasions in our lives where we want to do something completely different and we want to like jump out of our normal everyday skin. So yes, I do think too much personalization can get it wrong, and there is something in and this is perhaps why some of the normal e-commerce things don't work for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Sometimes I think we're there to just inspire, to like put different things in front of people so that they can kind of think outside of the box, and try different things. So yeah.
Amazing.
Have you considered using AI on your site as an agent the way Booking.com has? So yes, we have. We've actually stayed away from, as I said, putting the AI in front. That's not to say we won't. But what we're trying to do is use the AI to let our humans in our business be more human. So I've got a very good example of that. One of our team leaders in our customer support team, her job every week was to listen in to a random set of phone calls the customer support team has so that she can train and help them get better to better support our customers. So she would take a random sample because she only had a certain amount of time. The AI now can listen in to every single call that we've done that week and pick out the calls for her that she should listen to, that the AI needs help, and she can tell the AI whether it was a good selection or a bad selection, so it continuously learns. It's an extraordinary piece of technology. For her to listen into every single call, I mean, she wouldn't, it's not possible, not humanly possible. So that's how do we make the humans in our business better? That's a perfect example of that. I'm just a little wary of putting it front and center to humans, and I think that's because we're such a personal business. We are a curator of amazing things, and I don't think you always have to be the first mover. Maybe Booking.com does, and that's why it's so successful, but I don't want to be like them. And so, there's something in taking your time, seeing what other people do, and then just doing it better.
I fully agree. And I think some of the times I've seen agents use, like on Booking, when it's an agent, it's AI, and you're going through, the predetermined flow to get to a human, you've just taken up more of my time, and then I'm already angrier, right? So why kind of give in to that when you could be really doing things to make your people's lives easier so they can do more in their roles? We love that.
I think I kind of answered that, the algorithm-based personalization with strategic business objectives. So those are our business objectives. The other one, there's a really good one, is like curation. That's a really, like, how do we allow our curators to visit more properties to, like, humanly and help them do less of the admin work in the background. And we have about 1,000 hotels approaching us every year to get onto the platform. So AI can help us kind of narrow down. But I worry, like, how making sure that we don't miss the hidden gems, because we are about the hidden gems that might not be so obvious. So it's really about training those tools and making sure we're super confident and getting our humans out on the road. And not relying on kind of, especially social media and Instagram. You know, how many people have tried something that Instagram has recommended to them and been slightly disappointed?
Slightly.
And in travel, that's a real problem. Because, you know, you can take a picture of somewhere, you can cut out the cables or the crowds or the big building that spoils the view. You know, you can doctor that experience, or the influencers get there and they get there at like 5 a.m. and are granted private access somewhere, and then the rest of the day you're lucky, you know, if you don't stand in the queue for 10 hours. Making sure that, you know, we have a human being who can recommend things is actually really important to us as well.
Absolutely. I think we highlighted one about segmentation.
How do you approach A/B testing as a brand? So we're trying to A/B test as much as possible. The tool we're using is Monetate. We try and A/B test whatever we can on the site. We've just gone through redesign, so our redesigns went through testing. There were, again, you know, the good old days of, like, fingers crossed.
Just deploy.
Just deploy.
And pray, yeah.
Are no longer. So I'm very happy with that. What inspired you? Sorry, do you get to stay in all these amazing hotels for free? I really hope so. We do get industry rates, so no, I wouldn't say free. It's strange because, you know, I'm not allowed for you. I don't want you to feel sorry for me because I go to amazing places, but it is work. So every time I arrive at a hotel, you know, there's a meeting and I can't relax, and I not so much anymore, but I used to yearn. When we were doing a lot of curation trips, we would go to a city for a weekend and we would see 10 to 20 hotels.
Wow, that is a lot.
It's a lot, and so I used to yearn for the times where I could be like a customer and just get to the hotel and relax and order a martini and sit by the pool. So yeah, don't feel sorry for me, but it is work. How did you get into the hotel space? So my husband and I were obsessed when we were dating. We were obsessed with hotels. We were the ones with the little black book. And I'm sure you've all got a little black book of something. We were just the ones who made it a reality. I used to say we used to kiss a lot of frogs to find the great hotel. So we actually I've stayed in a lot of dreadful hotels. But that's the point, right? So you stay in a lot and you get to find the good ones. And so we had done a lot of that just because that's what we love to do. Our friends always rang us for advice. And there was one particular hotel stay where, this was back when we were dating, and we arrived at the hotel, and the lady came out from reception, and it was a beautiful, stunning hotel. We'd just driven up this gorgeous drive, tree-lined drive, and we knew the food was going to be good, and it was kind of had a picture of somebody being massaged, so we knew we were going to get pampered. What we hadn't read every single word of the brochure, and so when we turned up, this lady ushered us into a side door. Now, I want you all to remember at this stage that James and I were dating. So in this room, she proceeded to weigh us and then tell us our weights. Now, I can tell you that is not the good start to a romantic weekend away. Um, and then the entire weekend kind of just descended from there. So we went up to the bedroom, and it was just a huge disappointment. There were swirly patterns on the carpet, on swirly patterns on the ceiling, swirly patterns on the curtains. None of the swirly patterns matched. There was a Corby trouser press front and center, and a little doily paper napkin that had looked like it had been there for 100 years. The hairdryer, ladies, in the bathroom was stuck to the wall.
Oh, no.
And like barely got to the mirror. And we just looked at each other and went, so disappointed. So James turned around to me when we arrived and said, I'll tell you what, this is date weekend. He said, we'll go down to the restaurant, which looked lovely. We'd passed it on the way up. And he said, we will buy the most expensive bottle of wine on the menu. Like Jeopardy, this is pre-children, obviously. So I said, you're on. So I put my shoes on, makeup, like date night, right? And down we went. As we sat in the restaurant, I realized that everybody else around us was still in their bathrobes. And when I looked at the menu, it was a calorie-controlled diet and no alcohol. So I know that's not, nobody drinks anymore, but,
Not exactly date night, right?
Not exactly date night, but that was the weekend. So we snuck out to the pub, and we sat there over a tea light and a pie and a pint and said, enough is enough. We're going to write the guide. And so we did. We took a month off each of our jobs. We drove the length and breadth of Britain. We found 41 hotels for the first book, put them together and said, how hard can it be?
Wow, what an amazing origin story. I love that. Great.
Another one. How hard for you is it to A/B test? Do you have a sufficient number of users, or do you generally? It depends. Very much depends on which area of the site. So some of the areas of the site are very, very high traffic, and some are not so high. So the deeper into the site you go, obviously it becomes much more difficult, and sometimes it's difficult to get that, something that's clearly winning, or it just takes forever. Whereas if we test anything on the homepage, we can get results very, very quickly. Mr. and Mrs. Smith has such a strong brand identity. How do you nurture it? In what ways can it be a challenge? Yes. So the brand tone of voice is very important to us. So we always say that we can be cheeky, we can be irreverent. Right? Mr. and Mrs. Smith is the name that you would write in the guest book as a pseudonym in a post-war era where it was frowned upon to be at a hotel outside of wedlock, even if you were planning to marry that person. So it's a nod to a naughty weekend away. So there is cheekiness in the brand, right? And obviously things have moved on, but we can still have fun with the brand, which I think, when you're called something else, I could be very rude about my competitors. You just can't be fun with it. So we have that fun, that tone of voice. However, underlying, and this is in our kind of brand ethos, is when you're dealing with somebody's precious time off and their holiday, we're deeply serious. So when it's your honeymoon, when it's a first date night, whether it's an anniversary, these are really important milestones in people's relationships, in people's time off. And time off, we just don't get enough of it anymore. So we take that very, very, very seriously. And that goes down to curation. The hotels have to be right. The way we service you, the way we're there. If things go wrong, I want there to be a human, if you need one, at the end of the phone. So that guides us in everything we do. And just to search and always be looking for the very, very best.
Amazing.
What are some ways in which you feel we can show up more authentically online, especially with regards to AI? Oh gosh, that's a big one. I just think being thoughtful about it. So when you come to make decisions, it's, am I doing this because it'll just save me time or cost me less, or am I really being thoughtful about how it will really benefit my customer? And how do I inject the human and the personality in this so that we don't end up all sounding like robots?
Absolutely.
Even though AIs don't sound like robots anymore.
Fair
They
enough.
do, though. I mean, anybody, like, I'm sure you're all using ChatGPT a lot. And I can just hear it. I input something, and I can just hear what it's going to say. You are so awesome at this. Yes, like this. Are you getting that? Like, it kind of, it validates your,
Your bubble.
It has this AI persona that is, it reinforces, and it's very nice, of course, and, you can ask it to challenge you and all the good things, but there is still something about it that is not. It's not a human. So that, it's just being thoughtful, just taking a step back. And actually, if you tell AI to take a step back, actually, you get a better result. So as humans, we could probably learn from the AI. Now I'm going off into... Okay, bring it back. Thoughtfulness. Stop and think. Why am I doing this? Is it really, creating something that's of value and is adding human touch? Because if everything's going to become very robotic and very AI-driven, it's the companies that can sound more human that will win.
I think we have time for one more question.
Oh.
Dealer's choice.
Luxury customers expect a higher level of service. How do you balance the customer's need for personal service with business requirement to self-serve? I think just offering as much of both as you can and always being there on the end of a phone if they need you. So, yeah. So we're still, investing in customer service, people at the end of the call. I read every single Trustpilot review that we get. The glowing ones, the ones that just go, you're amazing, are when they've spoken to a human. Nobody says, oh my God, your AI was amazing. Not that we have a chatbot. We have a chat, but we don't have a chatbot yet. But, and I hope they do say that about our chatbot one day. But I don't think they will. I think they will say it will still be, Clem or, any of the team, Nikki, who actually just deliver above and beyond service and are kind and are thoughtful and can hear in the voice. I'll always remember there was a customer who was waxing lyrical about it, and she said that she'd had to cancel because of COVID her honeymoon 3 times.
Oof.
And on the 3rd time, one of my team leaders, she had the team leader on the phone, and Joe just said to her, she just stopped the conversation and said, it's okay if you want to cry. And the customer wept on the phone. And the review she gave her, I will just never forget, because it was a moment, it was a real human moment of just despair of, having been through all of this kind of cancellation and, losing money, not losing money. Oh my God, it was just, traumatic. And so just being there as a human on the end of the phone was really important for her. Some people won't want that. So we have to kind of, move with the times, digitize. I'm not saying don't do it, but just don't strip the human out of your businesses.
It's crucial, that authenticity. Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining and participating. We appreciate it.